welcome everybody to the August 10th meeting of the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee. I hope everybody had a good summer break, but it's time to get back to the wonderful, enjoying fun we have up here. I hope everybody got a chance to review the minutes from the June 19th meeting, and if so, I'll entertain a motion on those.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Schaefer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I will say the mayor is on his way back to the meetings in Nashville. He'll join us as soon as he can. He's stuck in traffic somewhere on I-24, and I'm glad
Fancy
it's him and
that.
not me, you know.
It's the only one that ever happens to.
Investment report, Mr. Beatty, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you tonight?
I'm doing wonderful. We've got two reports since we didn't have a meeting the 1st of July. And our June rate for LGIP was 0.86, and then we increased 10 basis points from June to July, which was huge. So 0.96, so that puts our effective rate at 1.22% on our investments.
Who'd have thought we'd brag about one?
Yeah.
At one time, I think we got down to 0.03, didn't it?
Yeah, something right way down there.
Yeah.
Any questions of Mr. Beatty?
Motion to approve the report.
Thank you,
Second.
Commissioner Page, Commissioner Allen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Got a resolution to accept partial tax payments.
And this is actually a resolution to accept taxes prior to the tax roll. And what this will do for us by taking the taxes prior, our goal is to start being able to do 12 monthly payments on the taxes. So starting in March, we could do an ACH withdrawal. You can sign up and we'll draft 1/12 of your tax bill every month. So at the end of February, your taxes are all paid. You can sign up as long as you stay on that. Will just be an annual process to do that. But obviously to start in March, we don't get the tax roll the 1st of October. We have a computer system that will actually apply that to the taxpayer. And then when we get the tax roll in October, it will roll it to the tax bill and we'll move on from there. So that's why we need to be able to do it prior to the tax roll so we can do the 12-month billing.
And there will be an understanding that if reappraisal or tax rate changes or whatever, that would be adjusted.
Once a year, up or down, we'll adjust for it to wind up at the end of February, yes. So every year when we get the tax rate, it'll either adjust down or adjust up to finish out the next 5 months, yes. And that's written in all of our agreements that folks know that will change up or down.
Welcome, Commissioner Baum.
Thank you.
I told the rest of the committee, the mayor is stuck in traffic on the way in back from Nashville. He'll be here as soon as he can, which may be 10 o'clock.
And also, so what this would also allow us to do, not only to do those drafted payments, is what we get a lot of questions about, but if somebody came in the summer, they got some money prior to October and said, we want to go ahead and make this payment, we can apply that, where now we can't take the money. And for lots of folks, for whatever reason, they've got it or part of it now, and they want to make a payment, so we'd be able to do all of that.
So it won't necessarily just be the 12 increments. It could be a real estate transaction.
It could be.
And they collect the money at closing and go ahead and pay that portion or something like that.
Yes, we could do that, or somebody just come and said, I want to pay all or part of my taxes. But at this point, the only thing we're going to automate is an annual payment. In the future, after we get that down, we may do where somebody might want to have where we draft it out once a year in December or once a year in February, so they don't have to think about it. They just say, every year I want you to do that. But our first one to get the process worked out will be 12 monthly payments.
And is that for anybody that owns property? So would that be commercial, residential, I mean, everybody?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And what we would do, we would do that as a draft, and then you could obviously give us notice. You could get immediately back out of it. It will be for anybody who's current. They need to be current on their taxes. So when we sign them up, we can do that billing. And also what we would do, you would get a return on this just like a bad check. So if we get 2 returns in a year, we would remove them from the program because there's a cost to that. But everybody, 1 month can have a mistake, but, but yes, it would be open to anybody, personal or real, commercial or residential, that could sign up.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen. Commissioner Jernigan. Any further questions or discussion? I'll call the roll on this one.
Okay. Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peete?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Thank you, Mr.
I
Bailey.
think I have one more thing.
I was gonna say that one, well, I mean, as far as, that's a forward-thinking, good service for the people of the community. I would think that a lot of people would just like to have it automatically drafted out of their account once a year and not to worry about coming in or writing a check, and that's just one more way you're helping to serve the community, and I appreciate it. Now, we've got an interlocal agreement with Town of Smyrna. Is that yours?
Yes, sir, that's mine as well. Smyrna has asked us, and it has passed the Smyrna Town Council, to become the tax collector for the town of Smyrna. And so we would take over collecting their taxes. It would be at a $4 per parcel charge that Smyrna would pay the county for us to do that. And so we'll collect their taxes, do their tax relief. We already do their tax freeze application. The benefits to the taxpayers is today you have to go to 2 places if you live in Smyrna. You have to go pay at the town of Smyrna, you have to go fill out tax relief at the town of Smyrna, and with this agreement, they can just come to one place, the county, pay the taxes, and do their tax relief at one place. We would do one bill. It would come out with the tax rate and the tax amount for the county, tax rate, the tax amount for the town of Smyrna, and one total. So we'd send one bill. So it won't increase our mailing cost any because we're already sending a bill. So it would piggyback on top of that. We would do partial payments, which the town of Smyrna doesn't currently do, so it would benefit Smyrna residents to get to do a partial payment. What we would do on that is prorate the payment between the city and the county. So if they pay 25% of the bill, we'd pay 25% of Smyrna, 25% of the county, and then we would settle up with the county by the 13th, or with the city by the 13th of each month. It would be a 1 month, that we would settle up, what we've collected for them, and they would pay us prior to October 1. It's about, based on what they have now, about $108,000 that they would pay annually to the county for us to collect it. And like I say, we're already doing, there'll be a little more work with tax relief, and we would put somebody during tax season full-time at our Smyrna location, but we're almost to the point of needing to do that anyway. We've been down there 3 days a week, but with all the growth in the north end of the county. So our computer system has worked it out. We've kind of worked all these things out, but I think it's a win-win. It will produce some revenue for the county and won't really raise our expenses because we're basically, other than cutting a check to Smyrna and a little more bookkeeping, we're already seeing all these people to start with, so we're able to, I think, to be efficient.
Just, we'll say it, Smyrna people, they won't have to have as many on the payroll.
Well, yeah, and I think it will certainly keep them from having to increase because they still collect utilities and some other things in that office, but it will help them grow. Again, they weren't doing partial payments. This helps their people. Our computer system, our internet system was a little bit more robust. We were on a newer system, I think, on local government. So there's some infrastructure cost. I think it would save them and some manpower. And I think for Smyrna, they said it saves our citizens. They're already going to the county and having to come to us. This way, it just cuts out that whole stop. And so the people in Smyrna could pay in Murfreesboro, they could pay in Smyrna, they could mail, they could pay over the internet, really doing all the things that they already do. But just because you're in Smyrna doesn't mean you have to go to the Smyrna location. You could pay in Murfreesboro as well, because a lot of those folks will work here.
So it's not going to cause us to have to increase manpower to cover it?
No, sir. No, sir. We're able, we already, I think we have enough. We're already in Smyrna. Excuse me, like I say, our cost increases will be a little bit, but minimal. It'll be much less than what they're paying. However, because they're duplicating the mailing, duplicating the people, it costs them a whole lot more than they're paying us, but we can add it on and cost much less. It's just an economy of scales, and it's just a duplication of work today.
You said that it would be, they would wind up paying us about $108,000.
Yes, sir.
So it'd come out ahead a little anyhow.
Yes, sir, we will come out ahead, yes, sir. Yeah, I just can't imagine anything that we're doing that would cost us anywhere close to that much, but it will save them again significantly
It's a
more.
win-win.
Yes, sir. Because you take our postage is right at $30,000, for the one mailing. Well, we're already mailing to everybody in Smyrna, so we can add that on to the bill. Our postage doesn't go up a bit, but for Smyrna, that's probably a $7,000 expenditure right there that they save in just that one item that we don't increase at all. They've got to have a tax relief person. We already have them. We're already taking the application. They're having to go there and do that. They're having to take a payment. We're having to take a payment. So all that duplication goes away. That's why it really makes a lot of sense. Plus, it just saves people 2 trips. It's easier for taxpayers.
Will they be able to write one check, cover
Yes,
both of them?
yes, sir. They can write one check. They can, again, make partial payments. But yes, sir, they can write one check one time or make the partial payments however they want to do it.
How do Laverne and Murfreesboro do this?
Laverne, Murfreesboro, and Eagleville still collect their own taxes, which Smyrna has done, prior to warning
You
us
think
to
you'll
do
have
it.
some others jump on the bandwagon?
They may well, but I have told Smyrna that this first year, we would take one and one only. We want to get it right. And remember, last year, we upgraded our computer system. We had actually talked about this for probably 3 years. When first approached, I said, our computer system, I'm not comfortable that we can do a great job. Plus, I don't want to take you on and then go through a conversion. Let's go through a conversion. Let's get our first year behind us so we know that will work. And then we can, discuss bringing on those payments. So we're there. The system is set up to do it. Other counties on our system are already doing it, so we're not recreating the wheel. This is not new. We've already actually visited some other counties and have a field trip planned for next week to go see, kind of pick up the best practices from other counties that are doing it to try to save as much work as we can and make it smooth as possible.
If there are no more questions, I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
I'll second.
Mr. Schaefer. Are there any further questions or discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beatty. Fund condition report, Ms. Nolan.
Okay. We've got a lot to cover. We're going to finish out last fiscal year. In June, we received $664,500 in development tax, brought our total for the year to $6,237,000. And you can see that's quite large compared to the last 2 years.
And what was our estimate?
We kept upping it. If you remember, at mid-year, we
I remember
We added, I think it was like we added $2 million at the end, debt service and general fund. Okay, cash at the end of June total $250,652,000, with $200,551,000 being operating funds, $50,010,000 being borrowed funds. What I'd like to go to, and I put these out, I sent these to you earlier, and I printed them out for you because I think this kind of helps us talk about how we finished the year. And I always have a struggle on how to best present this information, so this is a new format. So when I'm looking at the variances, how did we do with our budget on revenues after we amended our budgets? Revenue came in almost 1.7 better to the good after we even amended. Our appropriations, which we don't amend throughout the year to say at the end of the year we don't think we're going to spend and write down our appropriations, but we did not spend almost $6 million in the general fund. So on a budgetary basis, we have a positive, favorable change to fund balance of $7.6 million. If you wind back to that actual you see what our actual revenue was 95,119,000. We actually spent 93,246,000. So our fund balance grew on an actual basis by 1.8. So y'all got it? Okay, so the best part of the story is about right here in this middle part where I'm talking about that favorable change to fund balance on a budgetary basis is 7.6 million. But we roll into the 17-18 year and we adopted a budget that was upside down 8 million. But I think this is easy to say, the favorable budgetary purpose that we gained last year, we're using into next year. Way to look at it. One way to look at it.
So we just found 7.6 of 8 million we're going in the budget
Well,
to some extent.
It ends up kind of yes, no. The end of the story of, well, what happened to our fund balance now that we're coming into the year? How are we looking? Well, with the budget that we've gotten, how we closed, our fund balance, our unassigned fund balance is at 24.9, almost 25%. So we go into the market good. Solid waste, there was a favorable change on a budgetary basis of 700,000. Next fiscal 17-18 fiscal year, we're using 752,000 of fund balance. You can see that we did close, let's see, where's that was? I didn't write all those down. 16, our actual, where is that? Let's go back to this one. 540,000 is how solid waste improved on actual basis. So their fund balance is quite large compared to their appropriations. But one of this I gotta just say, remember this when committees ever start talking about how we fund a garage or the new, you bought property out in Florence. This could be a source of monies to build buildings. I will skip over to two other major funds. I've done these for quite a bit of the other funds, but our big ones. General fund, road and bridge. They ended up with a favorable change. GPS, their favorable change to fund balance on a budgetary basis was $16.8 million. Let's see. Let me get to theirs. Their actual, y'all can probably figure it out, but I did write it down. On a budgetary basis, it was upside down as well, but we closed the year with using 515,000 of fund balance. So that's on the actual. So we end with their fund balance at the end of next year with the new budget at 32.6 million. 32.7 million, or 9% of their fund balance. Or their fund balance is 9% of their appropriations. It's a better way to put it. Debt service, after we amended the revenue, we still had a favorable budgetary basis of an increase to $435,000. That's the increase on the budgetary basis. On the actual, fund balance grew $7 million. So we will go into next year with our fund balance being at almost 90% of appropriations. So again, we're in tremendous good shape going into borrowing
Yeah, that's good news, and also for the ambulance fund, because I know we've been worried that in just a few
Yes.
years, the ambulance fund was going to need some
Yeah.
additional money, but this helps the ambulance fund out as well.
Yes, it does. I mean, they close, and it's, you can see it's what they did not spend is what helps them. You know, but we talk about actual, and we talk about budgetary basis, and on the budgetary basis, this is what we intend to spend, but for whatever reason, it doesn't get spent. And so that's how, you know, we talk about what the fund balance is at different points in the year. We talk about what is it on the budgetary basis, and then what is it actually now when we've closed and said what we are going into. So I guess, does this help you? This is a different format than I've ever given y'all, but it's the walking from where we were into the next year.
How much actually rolled over that was grants and stuff from last year that didn't get used, that rolled over into this?
I didn't totally, but you'll see a lot of it tonight.
Okay. I mean,
You will
is
see
it
it start-
significant? Is it $1 million?
No, I don't think it's $1 million,
500,000?
is it?
I don't think so.
No.
Okay.
And,
So it won't make
we
that
close it to, I was thinking this is already reflected in here when we've had to make, I'm using the health department, we would have adjusted what went into fund balance that you're going to reappropriate tonight. So it's not coming out of the unassigned assigned fund balance.
It's in reserve.
Yeah. Okay, so that was how we closed. So I feel really good about that as far as the county. So I'm briefly going in July because for us, a lot of the activity that happens in July gets rolled back in, and it is the June activity to do it on a modified accrual basis. But I'm going to jump into July now. For development tax, we received $207,000, which is about half of what we got last year in July. Our cash balances at the end of July total $238,169,000, with $188,557,000 being operating funds, $49,612,000 being borrowed funds. And I'm not going to touch on revenue because I've given it to you, but it's not a lot of, you've got the comparisons for the 1 month and how we compare. And it's normal.
Any questions of Ms. Nolan on either June or July?
Motion to approve the report.
Thank you, Commissioner Fink.
Second.
Commissioner Ely. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Ready for the risk management financial report. Ms. Street, welcome. How are you tonight?
Good, I'm doing well. I'm going to cover both June and July reports for you tonight. We'll begin with Fund 264 for the month of June. So ending month of June, our revenue was $5.3 million. Expenses were $5.2 million. When we look at the variance by month, we were at $96,000 on the revenue, and the calendar fiscal year variance was $1.7 million to the negative. For calendar period year to date, prior year revenue was $35.7 million compared to current of $38.9 million, with expenses at $32.8 million versus current at $33.1 million. Fiscal period year to date, prior revenue was $62.4 million compared to current of $65.2 million, with expenses at $66.2 million versus current of $67 million. For the 2017 calendar year, when we look at the revenue and expenses, we are at $5.7 million to the good. Whenever we look at the fiscal year 2016-17, we ended with a 1.7 deficit, as we previously mentioned. Within Fund 266 for the end of June, the fund ended at $989,000 versus prior year of $702,000. So moving on to July, revenue for July was 1.3 million and expenses were 6 million. Of course, we're in July, so we're not collecting premiums for the Board of Education in the months of July and August, so that's not too shocking for us at this point. And that's why you see the significant variances on the second graph there. The calendar period year-to-date for prior period was 37.4 million in revenue compared to current period of 40.2 million. Expenses are 39.1 for prior period versus 39.1 for current. The fiscal period year-to-date revenue for prior year was 1.6 million compared to current of 1.3, with expenses in prior fiscal year at 6.2 versus 6 million in a year-to-date. For 2017, we're looking at the calendar year. We're currently ahead when we look at revenue versus expenses at 1.1 million. And when we look at the fiscal year of 2017-18, we're currently in a 4.6 million deficit. That has a lot to do with the premiums, as I previously mentioned. Within Fund 266 for the month of July, we ended at 180,000 versus 22,000 for prior year.
Any questions of Ms. Street? A lot of information there at one time.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen. Mr. Jernigan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Melissa.
Good night.
We got the approval of bond amounts for county officials.
That's it's her too.
Is that hers also? Melissa, did I? Melissa, I believe the next one's yours too, apparently. I didn't realize that.
I forgot the bond was on there. I need to pull that up here because I didn't bring it with me.
Number 7.
Okay. So this is for the bonds for all the elected officials with effective dates in September of 2016. And then the highway commissioners are on here as well, which those bonds are handled outside of my office. And we're presenting them to you all so that they can forward on to the full commission and we can be in compliance with what the comptroller's office is looking for.
This is one of those things that just have to be spread upon the minutes.
That's right. Yeah, the bonds are secured. We're okay from that regard, but this is just a procedural step that we need to take.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen. Sure. Commissioner Jernigan. Any further questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
All right,
Thank
I'm really
you.
leaving this time.
Thank you again, Lori. You better get out of here.
I
We'll call you
know it.
back.
Sorry about that.
Quick enough, right?
I know.
Trustee. General fund budget amendment for emergency management. Mr. Cash, welcome.
Thank you, sir. All this is we received the funds for the Homeland Security grant a little bit late in the year. It's been a trend lately. And after we get spending for all the projects, you got to keep in mind that they get their estimates from vendors a lot earlier. So sometimes those estimates are off. And what normally happens is after they spend on their projects, there's usually a little bit left, and we go back and look at the projects and see where we can spend that little bit out. Well, that didn't happen before the end of the fiscal year this year, so we got $905 we need to go back and spend rather than give it back to the state, which I'm not going to do. I know it ain't much, but, and that's all this is.
Motion to approve the request.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
Second.
Commissioner Teague. Any further questions about Mr. Cash and the $905? Call roll.
Commissioner Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. An acceptance of grant for Banfield, from Banfield Foundation for Paul. Mr. Gregory, welcome, sir. Thank you.
We learned of a grant through the Banfield Foundation. We never applied there before, but it was for some medical equipment that Doc had been requested for her area. And it came out to a little over $14,000 for 3 oxygen concentrators for her anesthetic machines and some additional surgical instrument packs.
Any questions of Mr. Gregory?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Ely.
Second.
Mr. Schaefer? Any further questions? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. We've got a general fund budget amendment for Paul's.
2 of these, the one you just did for Banfield is included on this, if you just approved that. The other 2, one is for Petco Foundation and one is from PetSmart Charities. These are grants that you approved for us to apply for back in the spring. This is just allocating the money to the line so we can purchase those equipment and put some money into part-time help as well.
Other wishes of the committee?
Motion approved.
Thank you, Commissioner Jernigan.
Second.
Commissioner Schaefer? Any further questions or discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Gregory. We have a contract for juvenile detention care services for Weakley County. Ms. Duke, welcome.
Hello. Okay, so this is our standard contract that you've seen many times before. This time it is for Weakley County. And then at the last page is just the appropriate PREA language that needed to be attached to the original contract.
Any questions of Ms. Duke?
Motion to approve it.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan. Any questions or discussion?
How many counties does this bring to that we actually accept?
We're up to 37 now, I believe. And I think we've got one more that should be coming in the mail as well. So.
Over a third of the counties in Tennessee.
Any further questions? Call roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. General fund budget amendment for juvenile detention.
I'll do this one. If you remember in the budget process, we had the Title I program out, it went in, and now part of it's coming out. So the way, after the dust settled, the salaries and benefits will be handled through our budget. Stuff is going to be handled out of the school's federal projects budget. So this amendment takes the stuff, equipment, materials, supplies, and other charges out of our budget.
We're
So it's
depending
a
on what the
net
federal
effect.
regulators or overseers, we're being
Well,
jerked around by the federal government,
Well,
basically, on it.
the school board is too. But
Yeah.
after all is said and done, this is the
But it's all just
best
bookkeeping.
method. Yeah, it's
Kind of, nothing's actually changed, is how the money's flowing.
It's just part of it's going to be out of the county budget, part of it's going, well, all of it will be out of the school budget. We'll just, the salaries and benefits will ask for reimbursement.
We knew this was coming. We heard about it.
Yeah, we thought we had
We
it.
thought we had to settle, but then they threw a last little twist at the last minute. But
I'll make a motion to approve the request.
thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
Second.
Commissioner Allen. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Davis. Got a contract with Tennessee Department of Transportation for a correctional work center. This is our litter grant.
This is the litter grant for the 17-18 fiscal year. It's the one that generally comes to you every year. I was trying to see what the total was. Mark, do you have it?
31,381.92.
You said 5 times real fast.
31,382.
31,392, first page.
No surprises here.
No.
What are the wishes of the committee?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Peak. Commissioner Jernigan. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Eagley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Got a memorandum of understanding with Doors of Hope for Correctional Work Center.
You remember we put in the budget, I think we're sharing half of the cost of them providing this therapeutic,
This is the 30,000.
I understand,
Okay.
therapeutic reentry. So we're funding 30,000 of that, and they're also supplying about that amount of money from their own internal budget. So this is just a little piece of documentation that really sort of put in writing what they're going to do and what we're going to do, and just so that we'll have this properly documented.
Well, we've already committed to this previously, correct?
Yes, sir. We've already committed the money previously. This is just a working agreement that we've developed.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Ely. Any further questions or discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Eagley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Got a general fund budget amendment and transfer for Correctional Work Center.
Okay. I will do this one. This is related to a JAG grant, a Bureau of Justice Assistance mental health grant. It's a collaborative for treatment, recovery, and reentry for women with co-occurring mental health illnesses and addiction. The first part of the amendment, part of this grant can be used for travel to conference. And so this is, the first amendment is to get the money in the right spot. The second amendment is an improvement to the grant, that they are getting additional funds. And they are putting it into the 312, which is contracts with other agencies.
So the actual grant's $5,064, not the
No.
two numbers combined.
That's actually a transfer.
Actually, it's a transfer. The first one's a transfer, just get money in the correct amount. We had $72,976 is what we budgeted for this year. But as we get into this year, they are getting more money. They've got more money coming to them. So that's the $30,479.
Motion to approve is presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Schaefer. Any further questions or discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Eagley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Yes. Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. We've got a general fund budget amendment for the sheriff's office. Welcome, Preble. You bring your assistant with you.
I'm a driver.
I need to know their place.
Mark got me set up today, put everything in order for me. Ready on this first one?
Go ahead.
The first one is going to be our grant for the pre-offender release case management program we received. We need to recognize that revenue, $61,355, so we can spend it.
Questions or discussion? Or motions?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Peak.
Second.
Commissioner Ely. Further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Eagley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. We've got an agreement with Doors of Hope for the sheriff's office. We've got a lot of talk about Doors of Hope all this.
This
It's not last one.
This is the contract for the grant you just approved.
Yeah.
Grant funding you just approved.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it, your service agreement.
So I believe Mr. Tucker told us what it was. That's the contract for the grant we just approved.
Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
right. It's
I'll make a
required by the
motion to
grant.
approve that also.
Thank you, Commissioner Petty. Commissioner Allen? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Yes. Mr. P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. We've got an interlocal agreement with the city of Murfreesboro for the sheriff's office.
This is a burn grant. Basically, it's buying this equipment that we probably cannot afford without it. We get approximately $29,910 for this, and we split it with Murfreesboro, and they have put that in. So we just need permission to go ahead and let them file a grant.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Ely.
Second.
Commissioner Schaefer.
This is one we do every year, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
And Murfreesboro gets the odd dollar because they fill out the paperwork. Is that what it is?
That's true.
We buy $7,000 radios with them, so that does save us a lot of money.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. And we got a special purpose fund budget amendment for the sheriff's office.
Is that the 1950?
She got two of them.
That's the
117.5.
As y'all know, with the special purpose, we have to zero that out and start over again. These are the expenses of where we're putting our money in the different line items, so we can spend that money too.
So we're taking both these pages once.
Yeah, you can take them on at once, and then the other one's the 1950 that you referred to.
And that is going to be for the month of July that we received, and we need to put that in our confidential line item.
We'll entertain a motion on both of these together.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Jernigan.
Second.
Commissioner Baum. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Thank you very much. Y'all have a good evening.
Appreciate it.
y'all.
Thank you.
We've got authorization to apply for grant from Firehouse Sub for Public Safety Foundation, Firehouse Sub Public Safety Foundation for the ambulance service. Mr. Nunley, welcome.
Thank you. I've got Adam Rose here. He's my supervisor at the Special Operations Rescue Team. This would be a piece of equipment for them. We're basically here seeking your approval to apply for the grant.
So most important, it's a zero matching grant to start off, so there's nothing to match. The drone that we're looking at is probably in the price range that would be out of our budget. And also, we've already tried through Homeland Security District 5 for a grant for the same item, and it was denied. So we're trying to go through all the routes before we have to spend money out of our own budget for the piece of equipment. I would say probably within the next 5 years, a drone will be a standard piece of equipment on our rescue apparatus. It's just technology. The big thing about the drones we're looking at, or the particular one, is the camera features on it. So for example, if you had someone that was, we go out for a search, or someone with dementia has walked off, we can put the drone in the air and clear a field or something along those lines. And of course, the ones we're looking at have the night capability, so it's more like a heat camera, so we can find hot spots or something like that. We could also use it on hazmat calls. If you have a truck, for example, carrying some type of materials, unknown, we can fly the drone down, get a good look without sending a responder into that dangerous area. So more efficient, safer than sending our own personnel down. So those are just some of the capabilities that it would have.
One would have probably been a good help for Sevier County earlier this year, maybe.
Yes, sir. For sure, no doubt.
Make a motion to approve the request.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
Grant.
Second.
Commissioner Turner, I got that. Any further questions or discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yeah.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Before we leave this, I do have a question. Who's going to fly these drones for you?
That's an excellent question, actually. So OIT already has a drone in their department for some of the things they do, and they've already came up with a policy that includes all the FFA rules
Well, that
and some county rules, including training. So we're looking to train about 7 to 10 personnel over at our facility. That way, they have to be licensed, they have to go and take a test, and that way they know all the rules and capabilities of what they're doing. So it's not just, we're not just out flying, feeling, whatever you want to do. It's actually there's a lot of FAA rules that are unbelievable. So we're planning on having...
Sounds like a good thing.
Yes, sir. We're having all our full-time staff members trained, and we're going to keep it on our heavy rescue unit so it'll be available 24 hours a day. So,
Okay, thank you.
yes, sir.
Thank y'all for being here.
Thank
Nice to
you.
meet you, Mr. Rupp.
Hey, thank you.
I've read somewhere not recently that a guy was arrested, and I think he serves a little bit of jail time and a fine because he lost control of his drone and it came down in the middle of like a town or that was having I won't say a parade, but there were people there and it came down.
That's one of those important FAA rules. You can't fly over a large crowd of people. Thank you, guys.
Drones flying over somebody's private property and things like that.
Predators, they had some guy that was flying one down there when they were having their Stanley Cup finals.
Got a 2017-18 state health grant contract. Are you handling that for Ms. Carey?
Yes, I will. I'm going to start by saying you're going to see this particular grant come in maybe 2 or 3 times. It's just how the state wants this handled. The numbers in the grant are prior to any increases in salaries, but this is how they want to handle it. So this first version is to approve the contract for $2,488,000. And it's a normal state grant. This money, this part of the budget is fully funded by the state. The next version will have the salary increases and may have some new positions. On that one, I don't know if they're going to do that each separate or if she's going to be able to combine it.
These are budgeted numbers here.
They're budgeted, yes. They're
Part of the budget.
Part of the budget.
And state dollars.
It's all state dollars.
I move for approval.
Thank you, Commissioner
Second.
Egan. Commissioner Peay. Any questions or discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. We got a general fund budget amendment for the health department.
Okay, this is the tobacco monies that, for the settlement money that Dana has been using several years. This is monies that the state advanced to us, and so again, this is just bringing it back into the current year budget after we've closed, and she knows how much she has to spend. So it's $85,405.
Motion approved.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Schaefer. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. An authorization to apply for grant from Tennessee State Library and Archives for Archive Department.
This is for Mr. Lodell, and it is a request, permission to apply for a $4,500 grant for shelving. There's money for this year's budget, but he was doing it in 3 phases, and hopefully maybe he can get 2 and 3 done.
Motion to approve the request.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
Second.
Commissioner Bond.
Is it matching or?
No.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. General fund budget amendment for county buildings.
Okay, now this is a rollover from June when we added money for the HVAC system. We did an amendment for the engineering services, but it, was not issued, so it just went away. So we're asking for that money to come back.
Same number again.
Yes.
Yeah. But
Check it out.
yeah.
Close.
Close.
Okay.
It's actually less than what was actually
Yeah.
done before
Yeah.
because we'd already spent some money off of it, so.
Motion approved.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Was this gonna finish it up, or we're gonna see this again?
And this is the total, the rest of the total engineering cost, which have already been done. And the work is just now started though, but we haven't paid all this out.
Surely you'll get done this fiscal year. We have 11
And we'll be
months
finished
to
with
go.
this fiscal year, yeah, the administration and the execution of the contract.
And unassigned fund balances have gone up a little bit tonight, so we can afford to spend just a little of it.
This is money that's already been appropriated, though. Just roll it.
Just didn't get the purchase order issued last time.
Sheriff's always got some of those.
We've got a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Expenditures exempt from purchase orders.
Okay, this is a kind of a cleanup from, in our purchasing policy and procedures, but it's in our private act that any exemptions to that is this committee. You can see in the very top part of what is exempted from issuing purchase orders, payroll costs and utility bills. The second blocked group is what was approved by Budget Committee in October of '96. And then we are adding 3 more that we typically don't issue purchase orders anyway, but we want to have it in the record that we don't intend to have to put a PO, and that is our nonprofit contributions, the insurance and surety premiums that we pay like July 1, and any debt-related payments. We don't do POs for those.
Is this a change or is this a change in policy?
It's a change in it's
But we
a
haven't been
change
doing-
in written policy.
But we haven't been, this is
We
not a
have
change
not
in
been
procedures
issuing
at all.
PO.
No, we
We
haven't.
have not issued. We, like the nonprofit that you approve, we make a list and make quarterly payments, but
But
it's not identified.
this just cleans up the written policy.
Almost
to
put
some extent.
in our written policy what our practice is.
Any further questions?
Motion approved.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Ely? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
That's all I hate.
We've got an amendment to contract with Tennessee Department of Mental Health for evaluations and treatment.
This is every year, about this time of year. And if you remember, y'all asked why do we have to do it? State law says we have to do it.
Unfunded mandate.
And-
They used to pay for it.
Yes.
I guess that's how the school board got their medical insurance paid for teachers for the last 10 months. Is because
And I don't think these rates
No,
have changed.
these rates-
These are the
these
same
rates-
rates or what they were last
have
year.
not changed.
This just extended the due date, or the ending date to June 30th, 2018. It's the only thing that changed on the contract.
And the amount of money we're spending here is much, much reduced after Ms. Nolan some years ago brought this to attention. Our judges, they're using good discretion.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Does the mental health court that we now have play into this in any way? Okay.
This is those people that are maybe
Actual
appearing before the general
evaluation.
sessions and they need an evaluation of their condition before they can make reasoned judgments about what they should do with them.
And stemming from a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
I think this is the first time I ever voted for it, so
It was your motion. You
Yeah, but I was, see, that's an advantage to be at S in your name. You're one of the last to do it. It's already passed. You don't have a choice.
Next month, we're going to vote in opposite order. Yes.
I like it. Change that up.
That's it.
Take Rhonda off hook for all. We got a presentation of state approval to issue $10 million in capital outlay notes. Ms. Noel.
This is the interfund capital outlay note that we requested last, I guess in June. The state has given their approval. It's just a process that we have to go through, and this is, again, one of those spread upon the minutes.
No
that I
action.
present to y'all.
That's all we got.
That's it.
No action on that.
No action, just a
Except for we just send
presentation.
the minutes, okay. Well, that's it. Do we have any other business come for us tonight?
That's something I want to bring up. I think most of y'all may know that we had an ethics complaint with our attorneys. And I think part of the reason we did is because we don't see the money that we're paying out like we do on all of our other budgetary items. What I would like to suggest is we start small here, with each month give us a balance sheet showing, we've got a budget, put it in the same format that we're seeing, and whatever money that we have going out that month, I'd like to see that. And if you want to do that separate from the county attorney's budget himself, what we're paying there, I understand that's pretty well fixed. I mean, he's got a salary and he's going to get so much of it per month. I assume the way that would be. Not so interested in that as what we're paying out for other
For litigation.
services, for
For litigation.
litigations over and above the contract that we've got there.
So,
And like I said, we can look at it a little bit and maybe tweak it. Maybe you come to us and say, hey, here's what we could do, or maybe you've got some ideas. Think about that. I don't want to cram it down anybody's throat, but I think part of the reason we had that complaint is because we don't pay as much attention to that as we need to. That's my opinion now. It may not be y'all's, but
There wasn't oversight, is what you're saying.
right. Some of the things that were brought up by that citizens committee that brought the action there, most of it was, well, we don't know. And I think having that visible, and I said in that meeting, getting those monies that are being spent, it's kind of like looking for a needle in a haystack. It's hard to get that. And when I say that, we haven't come out before me and said, hey, I want to see this every month like we are now. And we hadn't done that in the past. And that's why I'm saying I'd like to look at it. If
off
it's-
the cuff, I would think it would be just one more report that Melissa Straight would present.
Okay. That's fine with me, as long as we can, see it, and make it a little more visible. If there's anything out of the
I mean,
ordinary.
it's not, I don't think it would be difficult, just trying to think about the best way. It would probably look similar to what you see in workers' comp, kind of how she lays that out with the revenue, because the revenue kind of comes in from all funds, and then the expenditures out.
Right.
Compared to last,
I mean,
Mr. Sandvik, do you want to interject?
I just have a bit of clarification. We have, and it varies, the last few years have been heavy. We've been bringing forward amendments for our special ed related legal fees. Is that something you all would want included? It's not through the county attorney's office at all.
Right. Personally, I was basically, looking at the county attorney's office.
But we do defend the school board on
Yes.
along with
Yes.
us concurrently
Yes.
on other matters that are not special ed. Do we not, Mr. Sandvik?
Sometimes the county attorney will get involved in the special ed cases, but this is more consultants that we have.
Well, if they do, then it should show up on this report.
No.
No, that wasn't this consultants, but just the straight litigation. There are cases pending whereby
Right.
you're named as well as the county
Yeah.
and even the sheriff's office, all those
Right.
together. So those things need to be recorded as part of it.
Those would totally flow through what you're talking
you're-
Right,
about.
they're paying out of that.
Hopefully, we don't pay too much on it, but right.
If you'll notice on the litigation report, Josh has given all those that are just the county, then we've got some for the sheriff, some for animal control,
Right,
some
right.
for the, if we could separate it into those groupings or at
Okay.
least, and
Yeah.
summarize those.
But that, I think what would help too, the way I see the report being used, is that whenever we do decide if we want to examine the idea of creating an in-house legal counsel, we need to know what have we been paying for? What services have we been getting? What's the scope of the work? And so I think seeing that kind of a billing report would help us understand better all the kinds of things that go into that position. And there might still be things that we would do inside versus outside. I like using an outside firm. I've made that clear. I think there's so many advantages to that. But I'm just saying if if we're gonna ever have a meaningful conversation about it, about the true cost, we need to understand what the cost is.
Yeah, I agree with that, but me bringing this up, that's not where I was headed with this, just so everybody knows. I want to be better informed than I have been in the past on what's going on in that office.
Well, everything comes out here, more gets in the public record, which is all public record anyway, but it's easier to be transparent, and transparency is always a good thing. If somebody doesn't go dig for something, and trying to find out the number, it ought to be easy to get to. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I cut you off.
No, that's all right. The only thing that's really outside that budget is litigation cost, settlements, et cetera. I mean, I think we're really talking about just the litigation piece of it right now.
You know, I think you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about the list that Josh has been supplying us, and I'm really been happy with that and what we're seeing out of steering, and y'all are probably getting copies of that. If you're not, you need to ask for, or I'll ask for you if you decide you want them.
But litigation.
All the litigation.
Yeah, we should be giving that to all the.
I was thinking that you were, but
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, we,
evidently we're not.
That's easy.
Let's do that.
At least drop them in their mailboxes
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
But-
Email it or something.
What the mayor was saying is, on that litigation list, you know, we've got monies that are being spent there. I'd like to see the associated monies being spent for these.
That'd be something that we'll have to account for it separately, because right now it's all going into one expenditure code. We don't separate out of a claim. Let's just say somebody ran into your house, and there's a claim, and there will be some legal to it, and there's the fixing of your house part to it. For us, it would all just be one claim. So we're right now accounting for it in one account number. So
she'd have to keep aside
we'd have to,
ledger
well, we'd have to, as they come in, be able to separate that out.
and match that up with the litigation report.
I'm thinking Ms. Nolan could work with Ms. Stinson and maybe brainstorm about some ideas and report back to this committee next month and see what you come up with and see if that's something that satisfies the committee. I mean, it's isn't something you're going to be able to snap your fingers and get overnight, but as long as we're working in that direction.
We may,
Maybe you could
we not,
get her to, we'll
we
remember to
may
talk
have
about
to
it.
start in August or September, because you've already
Yeah,
posted
we
some
can have this
stuff.
discussion next month while Ms. Stinson's still
And it
here
might be
and
something
get her
that
involved in the
builds
conversation. And you talk to her between now and then and see if you all can come up with a plan.
And maybe she can pull something out of her report that maybe we can keep doing it from her side. She can pull something.
And figure out where we're headed with this.
Right.
Yeah.
Something I want to reiterate, I think Josh McQuarrie is doing an excellent job. Been really pleased with what I've seen out of him. So what I'm asking here has got nothing, no direction toward him whatsoever.
Mr. Odom might want to come up and talk to us about opening high schools in the future. Financing opening high schools. Mr. Odom?
We really just, we do not have room for a motion tonight, kind of a consensus of what you think. Ending fund balance did come in higher than we anticipated and all. So we were considering setting aside a line item or something to place some money in for the opening of Rockville High School with that startup cost. And if additional funds come in and we can put some in that, if that would be amenable to what y'all think we would do, then we try to start that process so that we can kind of get back first year we're started up. It's just recording it. But we thought it might be a pretty good idea to get ahead of that, but 2 years out.
Would that be something you want to do specifically for Rockville High School? Because we're opening schools all the time. But I just want
We
to
may
start a
need to
fund
create a fund
and
to do
keep
that.
a fund going. That way you have a fund to draw off of. I mean, the
It
school board
makes
will have to
sense.
take action on that, but I would think it'd be something to be a little more long-term.
Similar to that 1 cent we put toward the construction.
It'd be more internal.
I was thinking more in terms of committing some of our fund balance to that, which would be a motion we would bring forward from the board.
So you're creating a designated fund.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good idea. How much do you have in mind opening Rockdale will require?
He's floated several numbers around.
It depends on how we are able to move staff as we get closer to the time. It could cross 5 million. It might, and it depends totally on how much we are able to move staff. Back to this year when we opened Rocky Fork, we weren't able to move as much staff. When we split Central and opened Oakland and Whitworth Buchanan,
our incremental costs for those two schools were probably a little bit less, no, maybe a little bit, but than what we faced for Rocky Fork. It depends on how they feed, and it's too early to say.
You can't use Stewart's Creek as a high school as an example or model.
That'll be where our starting point, but it will depend on what positions we can actually move. And we have some new directives from the state that we didn't have when we opened Stewart's Creek, so, yeah.
The other big change issue, there's going to be new line item numbers anyway, because we're in the pilot for this per pupil cost per school,
Yeah.
which people will not understand, but that's part of the ESSA, the federal requirement. Tennessee was able to get a 1-year delay in that, but we're one of the 19 school districts with a pilot to do that, to see how it works out and how it looks. It'll be really confusing to people. I think so far that, thank goodness, right now they're going to leave bus transportation on per pupil cost, because buses go to so many different schools. It's really going to be hard to track that, but other expenditures, personnel and stuff, and other materials, that's a federal requirement too, so they're going to do that.
I think it's a good idea. I feel like this committee has tried to plan ahead to build new schools by moving money to debt service, but maybe we haven't focused so much on planning ahead to make sure the money's there to open the new schools. And so this kind of would maybe give us a barometer to make sure that we're accounting for both things, money to build the schools and money to open the schools.
The next step, of course, is operating the schools, so they're reoccurring after the first year.
Well, but something else, what about land acquisition? I know
Well, we
Williamson's
talked
done
about that, maybe in this category, if, as Mr. Jordan was saying, it may be something where you want to put opening schools and land acquisitions or something like that.
I think you ought to go out and find some of these realtors that are wanting to sell subdivisions and have them donate land to you, because that's what you're doing for them.
You know, building utilities to it, and then they get very attractive.
Oh, yeah.
When you get sewer and water. Mr. Chairman, I can give you some very inaccurate enrollment numbers if you want to listen to that. We're 2 days in, it's not too good, you know.
Do you have numbers compared to the same day last year?
I have it compared to the end of the first month, which is the 20th day, which we do, so it's a year-in-year growth. Just at the end of the first month last year, we had 43,623. We are showing right now slightly over 45,000. So and it's somewhere in that particular range. But the reason I say there's still a lot of unexcused absences in your database at this point. In other words, kids may have moved somewhere, have not received a record request or that sort of thing. But when you get to 40,000, just 96% attendance rate is 4% out, so you got 1,600 absences anyway, you know, in just a normal operating day.
So that number is what, 1,700?
It is more like the 14, and I hope it'll follow some below that a little bit. Just some kind of things though that might catch your attention. Your largest high school today is Blackman High. It's up over 20. It's up to 2355 at about a 7.6% increase. But we're seeing, coupled with that also, Blackman Elementary grew 5.6%. Blackman Middle is 6.7% and has crossed the 1,400 market. So the addition there was very good. In this particular case, once again, I think starting Rockville High, it was a very good move for us. I know we moved it up a year on you, but right now we're seeing a little over 600 new high school students and seeing another almost 600 in the high 500s of middle school students in the third grades there. So the same pattern we saw last year appears to be starting again this year, that we get lots of students in the middle and high, much more than kind of in the elementary area. Some other just notable things. The other thing we're seeing this year that's changing, Christiana Elementary is up 5.3%, Christiana Middle is up 6.4%. So that again, Christiana Middle is now over 1,055. So the southeast section appears to be growing, you know, kind of looking at that. Also Rockville Elementary is up 7%, Rockville Middle is up 5.7%. So again, that southern section now is where, and you take a drive, you know what's building. Our high school happens to be Smyrna Primary, but they don't have that many students. But they're up 13.1% right now, and that could be a Section 8 or something like that. You know, those things change on us sometime to do. Siegel Middle is still growing, which is out in 10-year area, and Alta, they're up 5.1%. They are our largest middle school at 1,177 right now. So we do have some plans for the Oakland Middle and working on some plans maybe for addition to Siegel Middle to see what we can do in that. So we're a little over, it looks like, somewhere around that 3% range, which is kind of what we estimate.
Did not hear where Murfreesboro was noted to be in the top 10 cities in growth in the nation.
I think
Like I just heard that this week, so.
It's kind of those estimates you've been hearing for a number of years, it looks like.
Looks like they're all coming true.
You can see where middle schools are
trying to get back to Murfreesboro.
Well, they're up also. I mean, I did talk to her. I won't give a number there, but she's they didn't grow hardly any last year, but they're up
I
also.
was going to say, as you can see where middle school is coming from, but what high school, what's the big jump in? Is it homeschoolers? Do they have
Well,
middle?
I'm speculating. I really do think that a lot of people choose to homeschool, and I've said it before, it's a great pupil-teacher ratio. If you've got the ability to teach your kids and you got a mom or somebody who can stay home and do that, it's good. But I think when they start getting to middle and high and you start thinking about how am I going to get them the 2 foreign languages that the college says for entrance now, how am I going to get the chemistry and the physics and 4 years of math and that sort of thing, that people begin to look and say, well, maybe that we need to look back. And I think some of that's happening.
You've also got the dual enrollment and CTE. I mean, those are some really big draws too, I think.
And the grant that we received, a little over 500,000, and you'll be getting that. Moving that money, that was a special grant at the state. It was really interesting how that developed. We were told you're probably going to get about 125,000. Ms. Pilgrim came to me and she said, well, I think we can get 125. That looks like what it's allocated. I said, why don't you ask for more? And let's see, all they can do is say no. You know, we've got the things in place which should let us, with this one now, get Siegel High's Mechatronics is Siemens certified also. Matches really well with the Mechatronics and the degree program. The kids can come out of this, go on to MTSU, get a degree from in that engineering that you have there. So we were very fortunate. She asked for it. I think they took 10,000 away from what she asked for, and we got the others. So you know, that's good for us in Rutherford County to do that. The other, it had to be in the Mechatronics room, in the mechanical area and the health science. So part of the grant is health science, and all your high schools will benefit from that. Some of this money will be used to upgrade the Oakland Mechatronics, and of course we do some things at night over there and with others. Swan Drugs has been very interested in that program, helps send people for some training and some things like that. So very good corporate people join us in some of this. Good business draw to Rutherford County. So very pleased with that.
What's the schedule look like for David Urey and Smyrna Middle? Are they both on schedule or no?
Well, Mr. Clardy's also told me that one of the issues we ran into at Smyrna Middle is that we did not spec shot rock. And so we'd get it packed down and compacted with the dirt, and it rained all summer. So there you were. So he says it's going to cost us more, but probably he's going to do shot rock. You know, and which will up the cost a little bit. It would have let us come on, so we're certainly behind in that one. A little behind in the David Urey. Inconvenient, but it's working fairly well. And again, they did mobilize on Rockville High. So the construction trailer equipments and things are there. That's proceeding, I think.
When will David Urey be done? I was thinking it was supposed to be ready before school started, but...
No, it wasn't. It was
okay.
Later this fall.
Okay. I knew Smyrna Middle wasn't until like January.
Right.
So.
And then, of course, architect was there yesterday. You approved Siegel High and the Oakland. We're doing a little bit of movement on the Oakland Middle because of the wells, geothermal. You know, we do everything geothermal now, so just a little placement. It's basically the same thing, but we've had to move a little because of geothermal placement.
Is it true that Wilson County approved $110 million.
It didn't pass.
It didn't, okay.
You know, that, I couldn't, I swallowed hard. Because it's about 300,000 square feet, which is our Rockville High, which we thought at 66 million or so was really high. And then I heard them say 110 million. I said, what are you, you know, and one of the things that some districts do, which we've kind of avoided over the time, is a number of school districts will hire a management company, construction management company to do it. And very often they'll tap 5% or so. Because one of your issues is if they can get that price up too, they're going to do more 5%, so a little bit more in that. But Mr. Carter, we have our staff that actually is on site, you know, that are having to, they check them very regularly. Our architect's going to owe us some money on Smyrna Middle for not finding something, maybe to the tune of 200,000. So we hold their feet to the fire. They'll learn us pretty quickly, I think.
Well, and one of the things we've been very careful to do for a long time, even before Mr. Clardy came, there were some unfavorable comparisons made between Blackman High's cost and Wilson Central. When we got in and analyzed it, it wasn't an apples to apples comparison. Commissioner Sandlin's phrase about a turnkey. Well, that's what we have tried to do all along. And it was not an apples to apples comparison. There were some major features that we had included in our budget and that y'all had approved that when we got into it were not covered with that stage of the Wilson Central contract. So it came, we actually went and had lower costs when you compared the completed projects. So.
Construction costs are up considerably.
Yes.
I think I may have said this before, but Stewart's Creek, you know, was a little bit over 120, 114, 15, 16, something like that square foot for the building. Mr. Clardy, before we bid it, actually added $40 a square foot as an estimate, and then it came in at $177 a square foot, the lowest bid. So anything you build now, very expensive.
Construction companies
How much
got a lot going.
Well, they've got a lot of
them are maxed out. Yeah, they said, well, we'll find a way to do it if they meet
supply and
this price.
demand.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
You can only imagine how much the county saved by building the new judicial building when we did.
Absolutely.
It would
Absolutely.
be tremendously higher today.
That's all we had. We were just trying to see if you would be amenable to us trying to create maybe a way to set aside some money in preparation for something 2 years down the road.
Well, I think this committee, from best I can tell, seems to give you a nod yes to move forward with the fund for the opening
We'll
of
come
the high
back
school.
with something.
Any other business come for us? If not, we'll all be back here a week from tonight for the commission meeting, and we are adjourned. Thank you.